let's go back to Notepad, go back to the file we've been working on, which in Bubble Under, we had just recently named it Index with Divs HTML. We're now going to rename that just to be plain old Index, and we already have one in that folder. If you look, I'll show you on mine. In my Bubble Under folder, I already have an index and an index with divs. This one is the one that we've added a lot more to that's more involved. So when I save it as index, it's going to ask if I want to overwrite this one, and I'm going to say yes, because index is all the name that we need. So back in Notepad, with index with divs HTML as the file that we're looking at, do a file, save as, and we're just going to save it as index. So you can either type it down here, or you can click on the name that already exists called index, and say save, and it's going to say, hey, we already have this, are you sure? And you shall say, yes, I do want to do that. So to be clear, the tab has changed the name index, but this is the one that we have with all the different divs inside of it that we just did. So we're good to go. From here, you can minimize Notepad and go back to either your jump drive, your H drive, wherever on your desktop that you have the Bubble Under folder, and open up the Bubble Under folder. So we have the image, and then we have two files. The one called Index with Divs, we aren't going to use again. It's there, but we aren't going to use it. And then the one called Index is that full version that we just saved with that name. Just to double check and be sure, we're going to double click on it here in the folder, and it's going to launch it in Chrome. It assumes that we want to see it as a web page, not as Chrome. So anytime you're in like My Computer or clicking on a folder, if you're not already in Notepad, it's going to assume that you want to see an HTML file in a browser visually the way it's meant to be viewed. If you want it to open in Notepad, you have to tell it to do that specifically, or be in Notepad when you open the HTML file. So this is the one we want. If we want to confirm that on our desktop, if we right-click on it, if you're on a PC, and say Edit with Notepad, that'll force it open in our Notepad, and we can actually see the HTML. And this is the right version with all the divs. So the index file is exactly where we want to be. Go back to your folder, it's on your desktop or wherever, go back to your Bubble Under folder, and we're going to make two more pages based off exact copies of this index page, and then we're just going to tweak things, because about 80% of the code is perfect. It's the header, it's the footer, it's the basic structure. It's just the content that we need to swap out page by page. So go and highlight in the folder the file called index, and right-click and copy it, or do a Command-C, and then right-click and paste, or a Command-V, and you have something called index copy. We want to rename that right away. So select it and choose Rename. We're going to call this one contact.html. We may or may not have had to add that .html. We'll see in a minute. Then go and highlight the index again and do another copy and paste of it. That's a third version that's exactly the same. This one we are going to rename about.html. So we have an about page and a contact page and an index or starting page. So once you've done that, if you want to dump out we'll just leave it. We'll leave that spare there. Once you've got that done in your folder, we can minimize and go back into Notepad. So I have two tabs available. My first one is the div example, one of the first exercises we did today. I'm going to close that one. I certainly don't need it. Leave index open. Then I'm going to open those other two files. So from Notepad, I'm going to do a file open. I'm going to navigate to my Bubble Under folder, and I'm going to open the About page. And I'm going to open the Contact page. And something did happen that I don't like. When I told you to add the .html when you were naming it, it did that, but it also added the normal extension all by itself. So up in your tabs, you see how I've doubled up on HTML in the naming. It didn't have to do that. We could have just named it about and it would have added the HTML. So I want to clean that up right away. So let's just close those two files that we just opened. Let's go back to your Bubble Under folder and rename these without the .html extension. So it's just plain old about, and it's just plain old contact in your folder. I'm going to dump out this index copy, or if yours still says index with divs, whatever the case, it's junk. I'm going to just delete it. So in your Bubble Under folder, we should have 3 HTML files. We see that over here in the type, that they are HTML, and we should have 1 JPEG. So back in Notepad, let's do a file open, and open up about, and open up index. File, open, contact. So now we have all 3 pages, all 3 files open in Notepad, and we can get to them by clicking on the tab and go from one to another. They're exact copies of the index page. Nothing has changed. So now what we need to do is clean up the index page to actually make it just be an index. And if we look at this page, so let's go to your index, make sure that's the one that's active and live. Let's view it in our browser in Chrome. So this currently has general information, welcome, a picture in this, but it also has the about text and the contact us text. Those are the 2 ditties that we're going to move to separate pages. So very simply, back in Notepad, with our index page active, scroll down to where you're inside the body. We see our header, that's not going to change. We get down to our div of body content, and on this home page or index page, we do want the header 2 that says welcome. We do want the image, and we do want this single paragraph. What we no longer want is the heading 3 about us, or the paragraph underneath it, or the contact heading, or the paragraph underneath that. So you can highlight all of that and delete it. Just make sure you don't wipe out this ending div tag. So from the H3 about us down to the paragraph that has the mail information, highlight all that and hit delete. Now we can see, zoom out on this page, our body content on the index page or the home page is just a header, a heading 2, a paragraph, and a picture. So if we save it and run it in Chrome, this is what it looks like. Those 2 blurbs, the contact and about, are now gone. Everybody good? So you can probably guess what we're going to do. Now we're going to go to the About page. On our About page, we get down into the body content. We don't need the heading 2 welcome, or the picture, or the paragraph at the top. We can delete that out. We do want the heading 3 that says About Us and the content, but we do not want the Contact Us all the way down through the paragraph with the email. I'm going to wipe that out. Make sure we keep that closing div, because that relates, that's the opening of the one right above here. So now on our About page, the only body content is a heading 3 that says About Us and a long paragraph. That's all that's on this page. Save it, run it in Chrome, and here's what this page looks like. No picture, just the About Us and the text. And then finally, we're going to jump to the contact page, and we're going to go down to where all of our body content is. And what we don't want is the heading 2 welcome, the image, or the paragraph, or the About Us, header 3, or the paragraph that talks about us. We want to wipe all that out and only have the Contact Us, header 3 remaining, and the paragraph that contains the email link. And then we close out the body content div. So this is a very small page again. It's just going to be a heading 3 and 1 paragraph. And if you save that and that is correct, this is what your contact page looks like. Header with the site ID and the tagline is the same on all 3 pages, but what is in the body content does change page by page by page. Was that successful for everyone? Okay. Let's go back to our About page. And the title that's up in the head section, so the parts that search engines see, the title has been the same on all 3 pages because we copied that. So yes, it's still the bubble under page, but it's now a little bit more detailed. It's the information on the About page. So instead of saying what it says right now, I'm at the bottom of this page, 14 if you have them numbered. We're going to change the title to read About Bubble Under. And they actually go on and on and on and talk about stuff. I don't think that's necessary. So I'm just going to change this page to be About Bubble Under. When we save that and run it in Chrome, the only thing that's going to change is that our tab up here that search engines see is now going to say About Bubble Under, instead of how the index page or the home page says Bubble Under the Southwest UK Diving Club, yada yada yada. So we just cleaned up the title page. While we're here on the About page, because now the only thing on this page is our About Us, having it be a level 3 heading when there is no 2 is crazy, because now it's the only thing here. So we're going to change this to be a level 2 heading and close it out as a level 2. So H2, close H2, is going to wrap around the About Us tag on this page. And save that. And that should visually make a slight change where this turns into a heading 2. The bubble under in the top of the page, the header, is a heading 1, so that's the biggest. The About Us is the next size down in hierarchy. Then we're going to go to our contact page and clean that up. Go up to the top in the head section where search engines go. We're going to change the title of this one to be Contact Bubble Under, and I'm going to wipe out the rest of that stuff because it's just too much. So the title of this page is Contact Bubble Under, and then we're also going to go down into the body of this, into our body content, and the Contact Us is the only information on this page, and we're going to change that also to a heading 2, and we're going to close it out as a heading 2. So save that file, and if we look at it, the header with our site identification and tagline is still here, and then the body content of this page is Contact Us, and it's now a heading 3. Everybody have success with that? Okay. The next page in your handout, or the page that you might be on, page 15, it's a right-hand facing page. The top third, it starts with a graphic showing you what the index page should actually look like, and we have most of it. What I want you to ignore is, let's go to our index page. They start with doc type, public, HTML, and then they go on and on and on and on and on about all this code. We don't need to do that. Our language, being English, is fine. Don't worry about that at all. Our head section has a title of Bubble Under, the Diving Club for the Southwest UK. And we have a character set of UTF. They have a little bit more there. Again, don't worry about that. So our head section is perfectly fine. Jump down to the body, make sure that it matches this one. We have a div ID of a header. Inside it, nested, we have site branding with a heading 1 of bubble under. That's good. And then we have another div of a tagline, and inside of that is a paragraph. So we're good there, and then we close our whole div of the header. Body content. Let's get to that one. Inside this div, we do in fact have a heading 2, and then we have a paragraph that contains a photo, the image source of the diver's circle. In our handout, they call it divers-circle.jpg, but the name of the file as we saved it in our folder is diverscircleimage.jpg, so we have to call it that so it actually pulls it up. And then that paragraph closes out, and now they start with some, now we're in a paragraph that says, glad you could do this, that, and the other thing, end. So that's all good. This page is clean and good. The About page, however, does have some new stuff. So if you go to the About page and you flip in your handout to the next page, at the top it says about.html, and then it shows a screenshot of the actual code. Everything is good all the way down to the About Us heading 2. This first paragraph exists, but it's actually a little bit different. So there are 1, 2, 3 paragraphs that we need to type in for this page to be correct and current. So under the About Us on the About page, look at your handout and make sure that you have 3 paragraphs. The bubble under paragraph, the although we're based in the Southwest paragraph, and the when we're not diving paragraph. I want you to type in all of those, and then if you flip it, let's look and see. I think that the contact page is good. Find out more. Yep, the contact page as we have it is perfect. So it's just this About page that we need to add a couple of more paragraphs of type to. So let's go ahead and do that now. So get your About page looking like it does in the handout. So your About page should have 3 paragraphs with opening and closing p tags wrapped around each. And when you view it, save it and view it, it should look like this. So we have our heading 2 of About Us, and then we have 3 paragraphs underneath. And again, we haven't done paragraphs more than a line or 2 lately, so it's hard to tell, but now that we have a nice long paragraph, you see how the p tag automatically adds a little bit of breathing room above and below. You didn't hit enter, enter, return, return, or break, break. It just automatically put that space between paragraphs for you. Everybody good at this point? Because you have to have 3 working pages so that we now can link them in a menu, a navigation menu, and jump from page to page. Okay. So moving on in our handout onto the next page towards the bottom after code for the contact page, which was correct, linking between our new pages. So we have a 3-page website, but we can't get from page to page. So we need to have a navigation area, and that relies on anchors. Last week we used an anchor for our email. We put an A tag around it, and then we told it specifically what to do, and we anchored it with an H reference to our email address. Now we're going to do anchors, and we're going to reference actual pages that we've already built, so it's going to jump to those pages. So anything that's wrapped in these A anchor text tags is going to be the part that's highlighted and turned into an actual link. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to create a simple navigation menu, and those typically go at the top of our page. So let's all go back to our index page, and we are going to put this after our div called header, the thing that has the name of the site and the tagline, but before we get to the body content. So our navigation is going to go between these 2 divs. So if you want to get your cursor in there and make some space so that you visually can see what you're up to, it's after the header, but before the div of body content. And here is where we're going to make a div called navigation. So let's just start with an opening div tag. And at this point, it has no name, so we want to give it an ID equals, and then in quotes, we're going to call this navigation. End quote, closing caret, and then jump down a few lines and close this div so you do not forget, \div, and then if you want to give yourself a comment, inside the caret, put an exclamation point. And make this bigger and zoom up here. This is what we've done so far. After that closing div, if you want to give yourself a reminder, you can say, this is the end of the navigation div. That's just your human reminder telling you what this is. So inside this div, or this clear box, we're going to put our navigation. And we're going to have our navigation be bullet points that are actually hyperlinks to the different pages. So inside here, we're going to want an unordered list. That's what makes bullet points. So we're going to start with a UL, and then go down a few lines and close out \UL, so we don't forget. Everything between these two UL tags are going to be bulleted list items as long as we wrap them in LI tags. So we're going to start inside here with the 3 words. We're going to do list item, and we're going to call our first page home, and we're going to end the list item. And then on the next line down, we're going to do a list item of about, and close that one out, LI. And then on the third line, we're going to do a list item of contact, and close out that list item. So inside this clear plastic box called navigation, we have an unordered list with 3 items. Save your file, run it in Chrome. There it is. Here's our header, and now we're at our navigation. The only problem is it doesn't go anywhere, right? These aren't hyperlinks yet. But they do show up as actual words on our page that are bulleted as a list item. To get something to be a link, we have to wrap it in those anchor tags. So let's go back to our code. So the word home, we want to wrap in anchor tags. And to make it a little bit easier, I'm going to do caret A, end caret around the word home, and then at the end of home, I'm going to do caret \A, end caret. So, I space this out, you guys can see that the word home is a list item, but it's wrapped in anchor tags. The only problem is that this is too generic. Anchor to what? I didn't give it any more of that information. So we have to say more in that opening A tag. So after the letter A, click to make a space, and we're going to do href equals, remember that's hyperref, where's it being referenced to, equals, and then in quotes, we put the exact name of the page that we want it to go to. Our home page should go to index.html, end quote. Now, our opening A, the caret there, ends that. So the word home is wrapped in an anchor tag that specifically hyperreferences or hyperlinks to the index page. Does that make sense? I'm going to back out these spaces here. So it is a list item, it is a bullet point, but it's also a hyperlink. So click Save and check it out in Chrome, and it should now be a hyperlink. I can see that it's underlined. It's a color, and when I hover over it, it knows that there's a home page to go to. Now we want to go back and do the same thing for the About page and the Contact page. If your code is clean and you worry about typing errors, you can always come up here and highlight this href from the opening caret to the closing, your anchor tag that starts. You can copy it. You can put it down here and paste it in front of the word About, and then paste it in front of the word Contact. Then go and get your closing anchor tag, copy that and paste it after about and after contact. Rather than going and typing those all and running the risk of screwing things up, you now have 3 hyperlinked lines, but ironically they're all going to the index page. And when people click on about, we obviously don't want them going to index. So we have to change the starting word here to be about.html. That's the name of our file. I can see it right up here. And we want to change this one so that it goes to contact.html. So this word is a link, a list item, a bulleted item that is wrapped in the anchor tags telling it to go to the index page. This one is told to link to about, this one to contact. When you save and check it out in Chrome, I now have 3 links. And because all 3 of these pages are in the same bubble under folder, this is going to work. So when we click on About, yay, it took us to About. But guess what we haven't done on the About page? What don't we have here to help us escape?
Back button.
Well, the back button exists, but what do you expect to be right here? Don't you expect the navigation to be on every page? So once I'm at the About page, what if I want to go to the Contact page? The back button isn't going to get me there. I need to add this navigation to all of my pages. That is going to all of them. That makes sense. So go back to your index code, and this entire div or container of navigation stuff, highlight all of that. So from the opening div of navigation down to the closing div and the explanation comment that you wrote, copy that, Command C or edit copy, go to your About page, and get down to your body section. After your header, but before your body content, that's where the navigation goes. So after the header div, but before the body content div is where you're going to paste in this div of your navigation. So now the navigation is going to come at the same spot on the About page. It's going to be at the top of the page after the header. So if I save it, look in Chrome, here is now my next page, and there's my navigation. This is the part right here, just these 3 little lines. That's the part that we pasted into this page that functions as navigation. And then you can guess we're going to do the same thing to the Contact page. So we're going to jump to that tab. After the header that has the site branding and the tagline, but before the body content that starts with the information about a contact, this is the gap that we want to put our navigation in. Paste it in there. So now, after our bubbleunder.com and our tagline, we now have that same grouping of navigation on this page. And now, all 3 pages work. Right now I'm on the Contact page. I can see that right here, and it says Contact Us. But I can go to the Home page, the About page, the Contact page. I can bounce around wherever I want to now. All 3 pages have the same navigation and tell each other what page to jump to from this point on. So, if you got that to work, that's perfection. Did anybody not get it to work or have problems? It's this chunk of code that we started with on the index page. We added a div called navigation. Inside it we put an unordered list, which is a bulleted list, with 3 list items. Each has an anchor tag telling it what page to jump to. And then we close out the div. That chunk of code gets pasted on all 3 pages. Make sense? I'm hearing nothing. Okay. Are you guys coded out?
Ready for more.
Ready for more? Well, I'm trying to think what I could logically do. Actually, we're just going to stop here. Next week, we're going to use the skills that we've learned and we're going to create a 3-page website using just code of your business. So you're going to create a home, a contact, and an about using the same skeleton idea, and then we're going to put more stuff in it as we go. But that's what we're going to work on, and yeah, I want to wait until next class period to do that. So there's actually, I'm not going to do any homework. Do save this. I know. Do you want homework? I could make you do your 3-page site on your own, but I think it'd be better if we did it together yet. Is that okay?
Would you? It's cool, but would you be upset if we started working on it beforehand?
No. You can do whatever you want, but that's what we're going to do next week,
Awesome.
is work on that. So, save this somewhere that's not going to get wiped off of these computers. So on your jump, on your H drive, cloud drive, whatever, make sure that we have bubble under, because we'll be working with this going forward. Right now, this is about the world's ugliest website, and we're going to start adding some style to it where everything in the header has a certain color background, and the type is a certain font and a certain color. Everything in the navigation is a certain way. We're going to start adding looks to it, which is really going to make it much more fun. If you went to a website that looked like this right now, I don't think you'd have a lot of trust or faith. All right, make sure you have this saved and can get to it next week, and we'll continue on with bubble under, and then we'll start adding a little of decoration to it as well, and then get working on your own sites.